We're talking about trades here and the trade deadline coming up. And it brings me to the Royals and who I really want to talk to about this because everybody keeps saying they should move Benintendi, and that's about it. Maybe Whit Merrifield. And in my opinion, they need to do something that they should have done a long time ago, which is start thinking about moving their older pieces from the 2014, 2015 seasons, the people that won the World Series for them that stayed, which is like Salvi Perez, stuff like that, and actually start building this team into a rebuild, a real rebuild. And the reason why I want to talk about that is because it seems like since 2015, the Royals haven't really done much to try to stay relevant. Now, I will tell you that in 2014 and 15, they were the Cinderella story. They went to the World Series. They swept their way in 14 and then lost at the very end of the Game 7. They almost won that World Series. And then in 2015, they beat the Mets pretty handily and had a lot of stuff go wrong that helped them get there. And some would say, including myself, that there was a lot of things that happened that allowed them to be in that position in 2015 with the Correa error and the Batista drop in right field that basically allowed the Royals to get their way to the World Series. And then with the Mets and Daniel Murphy basically hitting everything out of the ballpark against the Cubs, who had owned the Royals in 2015, allowed them to face an inferior team that they could beat, obviously. So I'm not taking away from them winning or anything like that when it comes to the World Series in 15. It's very hard to win one, and I know a lot of teams would love to win a World Series, and the Royals have won too. But here's the problem that I have, and the people here in Kansas City have an issue with allowing it to happen because they just say, well, we won a World Series, we're good to go, we don't have any issues, we'll give them a few years to get things figured out. And what I want to look at here is they should be trading people, and then we also need to look at why it's not okay for them not to be making moves to make the team better overall, okay? And I've heard some exploration of certain things that should have some Kansas City people worried, and this is what we're going to talk about today. So, obviously ESPN looking here at, who are the 30 players that teams should be trading for. Benintendi is the top one on the list. Now, he is hitting .317 as of recording this. He is a very good prospect when it comes to trading. He will be a rental. It's his last year. And so they won't get much for him, but they probably could get maybe a prospect or two. They do need some, okay? The thing that has me going here is I want to look at the Kansas City Royals win rate since basically they won their first World Series in 1985. And I want to make the case that, yes, everybody says, well, they've done okay and stuff like that. They're one of the worst teams in baseball. And I know that Glass, the old owner and stuff like that, kind of kept the team under a certain period. And people like to say it's the city can't get good talent to come here and play like that, which is BS because a lot of people will go play other places too. I mean, Correa went to Minnesota and the Twins. I mean, that's a whole different, same division, arguably a worse area if it comes to like weather and stuff like that. So, but when you look at this, I just think it's a general lack of Kansas City really thinking that their team is going to be able to do something after they win a World Series. So we go up here and we look at this, right? We look at their win percentages before they get to the World Series. Obviously, they started in 69, and they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of their first 16 years, they have winning records, which is awesome, okay? Now we're going to start getting into what happened after that. From here on, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. They have had more winning records in their first 16 years than they did in the next 38, which is a problem, obviously, for any franchise. And the reason why I have an issue with this and everything that's kind of going on right now with the current Royals is because when we go ahead and we look at this, they go from being an okay team. Okay, they're not winning 60% of their games, which is what a lot of these really good teams end up doing. They do very, very well. Now, obviously, 586, they had a really good year. The Central was down that year and everything like that. But they fell off a cliff afterwards. Now, again, some would say it's because they couldn't hold on to their players because they didn't have money. That may be true. I think they do have money. They just don't want to spend money. And I'm going to look into that as well. And there's a bunch of other stuff that we got to go through here. When you can't go from winning 95 games to barely winning 58, 59. I mean, they won 74 last year, but I really don't think that was kind of an outlier. And a lot of these young guys started coming up and started kind of bolstering them in September, and they had a really good record there. But when we start looking at this, their win-loss record as a total team is 479. That is not good. They're one of the worst teams in the history of baseball when it comes to win percentage. And when you start having stuff go down where the new ownership starts talking about using public funds to do a new ballpark in Kansas City, we're going to have a little bit of problems. Now, this is obviously from September of last year. He mentions a few things here. Let's go ahead and talk about conducting an process, evaluating our options for where we play. One of those options is play downtown ballpark. We're getting more feedback from the community, and we look forward to wherever we play. We'll meet the criteria. It's going to do great things for Kansas City. Now, I will tell you this, a downtown ballpark would be great because where the current ballpark is, right next to the Chiefs Stadium, is just absolutely horrendous for the Royals because every single day they have to go to the park and they look over and they see a Super Bowl champion and a team that wins a ton of games every single year, wins their division, and all the fans know that too. So when they go to see the Royals, they're sitting there looking at the Chiefs Stadium. Now, I know there's been rumblings of the Chiefs wanting them to move to a downtown ballpark because they want to take Kauffman Stadium and level that for more parking, which is something that they probably would do if that happened. And it's not good for the Royals. Plus, if anybody knows anything about Kansas City, is the Royals ballpark is really kind of far out there in the middle of nowhere. It's really on the east side of the city in Kansas City, Missouri. It's right there next to the Loop and one of the major highways right there next to 435 and 70. And it's easy to get in and out of. I will give you that. It's a great location for that. Really good parking and stuff. But it's a drive to get there. Now, everything is about 10, 15-minute drive in Kansas City if there's not a lot of traffic. But it takes, for some people on the far west side of the city, it would take you an hour just to get to the ballpark, which is not good. Obviously, you want to make sure you're kind of centrally located in a spot where people can go. And the best part about downtown is you'll have a lot of walk-up business because the Royals have had terrible amount of people attendance at these games. And it's really difficult for me to say when, living on, let's say, the southwest side of the city, I don't want to drive 45 minutes to go watch a team that can't even put up more than one run and give up 8 runs in the first inning, and it's not even competitive. There's no reason for me to go to the game when I can watch it at home and not have to pay $20 for parking, not have to pay $10. It costs more for parking than it does to actually go into the game. You can get tickets for $10 and walk around the outfield. Now, what I will tell you is Kauffman Stadium is beautiful, but it is ridiculous when it costs more money to buy a beer and a hot dog, or maybe a hot dog and a Coke for your kids, than it does to actually get into the game. There's something wrong there, okay? And it's not, for me, it's not going to be more of the team, it's just a poor market and things like that. No, it's a subset of what we were talking about here when it comes to this. When you have a team that can't barely win 80 games, not even win 80 games once, twice, 3 times in 30 years, who wants to go to that game? Going to a baseball game is a great thing. It's a lot of fun. It's America's pastime. People love going to baseball games. You get to sit there. I mean, I know going to the game is a lot better than watching on TV, and that's a whole nother video if we want to talk about, why people don't like watching baseball on TV but love to go to the baseball game. But you're getting to the point where people don't even want to go to the game. They just want to watch it on TV, which means something's wrong, and you're seeing a viewership decline and everything. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is why can't they put another a team on the field that's actually going to be able to do something? Okay, when we look here at salaries, and this is the reason why I want to look at salaries, is because I don't believe that they're actually trying to do something crazy and put a winning team on the field. They keep saying, and the new ownerships keep saying, that they're in the middle of a rebuild. They're in the middle of this rebuild. Well, how can you be in the middle of a rebuild if you have not been good for 9 years or 8 years since you won the World Series? Literally, since you won the World Series in 2015, it's 2022 now. It's been 7 years, almost 8, and you've barely won 60 games in every single season except for the year right after that, where you had an immediate downturn in your entire thing down to 500. So my whole thing is they're asking here in this, when I go back to this, the downtown ballpark stuff, they're asking for public funds from the people here. Yes, it's criteria, meaningful impact, real and measurable. Yes, economic growth. We get all that. Acquire the franchise, blah, blah, blah. It's a public-private partnership between the taxpayers and Johnson County. For the Royals, as part of certainly the Chiefs played their part. Yes, we get that. Frankly, it's hard not to go public with this, asking literally everywhere you can go. I want to be transparent because they want money from Jackson County voters because they, a couple years ago in 2006, voted for upgrades to Kauffman Stadium and Arrowhead at the same time. People were not voting for that for the Royals because, as you can see, in 2006, we'll go back here and look, the Royals were terrible. They hadn't been good since '03, and they've been terrible ever since until they got good in 2013-14. And so obviously when you talk about public funds and that, certainly the Chiefs had their part. Yes, of course they had their part. That's the reason why it passed. People knew it was only going to be passed if you combined the Royals and the Chiefs together. Ownership was not stupid. The Glass family, who used to be with Walmart, who used to own the Royals, now no longer own the Royals, knew exactly what they had to do to get the renovations that they wanted. And they partnered with the Chiefs and got those. But it's getting to that point where voters are not going to vote for a publicly funded downtown ballpark if you can't win 60 games. Now, I understand you have a decent farm team and everything like that, but why would anybody want to go on hope thinking that you might actually put together a team on the field that would be able to compete for a playoff position? We just want playoff positions. Now, I get into farm system because this is important. I'll give everything to them. I'll let them say, yeah, it's a rebuild, it's a rebuild, it's a rebuild. Whatever you want to say, you're rebuilding your roster. You've been doing that forever, it seems like. If we're going to rebuild, then what are we doing to do it? Because you have right here, Kansas City Royals top prospects, Bobby Wood Jr. on the team, MJ Melendez on the team, Nick Prado no longer going to be on the team because they have another prospect here that we have to look at. Vinny Pasquiano, he's already been called up this year and he's playing first base and doing really, really well. Now, Nick Prado is supposed to be good enough to play at different positions, but he's not that good of a hitter compared to this guy. So what are you going to do with that guy? Your number 3 overall prospect has now been rendered pointless when it comes to this because somebody else came up and is better. Ase Lacy has been moved out of the top 100 overall prospects because he has been having an abysmal season in the minor leagues. So what's the whole point of this rant? The whole point is when we go over here and we look at who could be on the move and they're only talking about Benintendi, the Royals need to start flushing out the system of the old regime. They need to take away Salvi Perez. He's arguably the best catcher in baseball. A lot of teams right now that are vying for the playoff spot could totally use a salary like Salvi Perez. Here's the deal. He is injured right now, 10-day thumb. It's really weird how his thumb injury popped up right before the trade deadline, and he's going to be good to go right after the trade deadline. He's supposed to come back July 20th. That's 2 days after the All-Star break and the trade deadline. Really weird. But he's only $18 million. They got him on thing for 2 or 3 more years. You could sell him and get 4 or 5 new prospects. You're talking about rebuilding a team. This is how you do it. You don't hold on to guys like Salvi Perez. I don't even want to get into Alberto Mondesi because he should have been sold a long time ago because he can't even stay on the field. And you keep pumping money into this guy thinking he's going to be a middle infielder for you, and he's literally produced for 2 months and that's it. But you got Andrew Benintendi. That's a great get rid of. You can get a couple prospects for him. Whit Merrifield has got one of the best team-friendly deals in all of baseball. He's paying $7 million for this guy. He's led the league in hits like 3 out of the last 4 years. He can play 7 different positions, and he's leads the league in base steals almost every single year. Get rid of him. Get some prospects as well for him. Because here's another thing that's got me a little bit crazy. When we look at downtown ballpark, yeah, their lease is up in 2031, okay? There's been some grumblings around the city here of the Royals throwing their hat in to maybe move to Las Vegas. And everybody's like, well, there's no way they could move to Las Vegas. There's absolutely no way. There's so much history. When you say history, you mean back to 69? I mean, that's when it was set up, and the franchise has been around since 69. So there's not that big of a history. We're not looking at like the Cardinals who've been around since the 1890s in the city. We're looking at a pretty good history with 2 World Series. Yes, that's awesome. Here's the reason why I think it's a problem that they might move to Vegas. They understand what's going on. Ownership is not stupid. They know they need public funds here to get the new downtown ballpark. When that comes onto the ballot for a vote, and Jackson County voters do not approve it because it's only the Royals, not the Chiefs, and they don't approve it because why would they approve it? You have a team that can't even win 60 games. Nobody wants to go to the game. Nobody wants to actually go and watch them. And so why would you want to add more money to your taxes to pay for a stadium for a team that is obviously not even trying to win games? They're not putting a good team on the field. So why would they vote for that? So here's what we can do. Well, Let's go ahead and just get the attendance down as much as we can, which is what they're doing. We'll ask them for money to build a new stadium, and if they say no, we'll threaten to go to Las Vegas, because there's other things that are popping up. The A's have just struck a deal where they might get a ballpark in Oakland. Tampa Bay Mayor is also starting to look at the Rays for them so they can keep their team in Florida. That means Las Vegas, who is trying to get a major league team in every single major four sports in America, which would be basketball, football, hockey, baseball. They have hockey, they have football. They're going to get basketball because LeBron James wants to bring a team to the NBA team to Vegas. And then you have the MLB. They need a team. Who better than this team that's very young with all these great prospects? You have a future MVP candidate in Bobby Witt. You got Brady Singer, who could win a Cy Young if he develops the way he's supposed to. MJ Melendez, who could be an all-star easily. Vinny Pasquantino, who could easily start getting up there. He's hitting the absolute crap out of the ball. But then you have other people, too, you're looking at here. You got Bubic, he's okay. Heasley's good. Jackson Kowar could be amazing. Daniel Lynch, who's not on this. He's probably hurt. We have Daniel Lynch right there. He's hurt. Straumont's really good, too. So you have a young core of guys that you can move to Vegas. Now, here's another thing that gets me thinking they're going to move to Vegas, because when we go to 2013, who's on the books? Now, remember, when we say on the books, anything that's under $1 million, all these guys right here, they're on rookie deals. So they're getting their rookie contract. It's guaranteed. They don't sign long-term MLB contracts, okay? So when you talk about MLB contracts, these are people that have to be on the MLB roster and can't play in like triple or double A or any minor leagues. So when we go to 2023, we have 4 guys. 4 that are on the roster. Taylor, Dozier, Hunter, Perez. Hunter, Dozier, Merrifield, Taylor, Perez. Let's go 2024. You got Dozier, Merrifield, Perez. And in my opinion, they should trade both of these guys. They literally have 2 more years of people on the books. Dozier, this is a club option, which means they can't pick it up. If he's not producing, they're not going to pick it up. But you got Salvi here, who's got 3 more years of control, which is huge in the game of baseball. Sell him for what you can. You don't have Benintendi. You don't have Greinke. You don't have Keller. You don't have Nicky Lopez. You don't have Scar Barlow. You don't have any of these guys that you're paying a lot of money to on the books. What does that mean? That means you have a nice, easy, low income, low payroll that you can move to a new city with a bunch of new guys, which is, a big selling point. Bobby Witt Jr., MJ Melendez, Brady Singer, Kyle Isbell, who's supposed to be really good. Vinny here, Vinny Pask, that you're going to talk about. You can market that. Vegas, you're going to be able to get free agents. It's going to be a lot easier for you to actually pull people into the city. And so when you have people there and you go into Las Vegas, you cannot have a bad team. But you have to have a bad team to relocate. There is no way they're going to let a good team. Nobody like Cardinals, San Francisco Giants, Los Angeles Dodgers, New York Yankees, obviously, New York Mets, who are playing really well, the Braves. None of these high-profile teams that win every single year are ever going to be able to move to Las Vegas. That's why they're looking at Tampa Bay. They're looking at Oakland. They're looking at Kansas City. Now, here's the deal. With Tampa Bay, they've been winning every single year. They win all the time, and they don't spend that much money. They spend $10 million to $15 million less a year every single year than the Kansas City Royals, and they end up making the playoffs for the last 5 out of 6 years. They haven't won a World Series. That's the difference. And then the Oakland A's are the same way. Every 3-4 years, they have a really good team. They win their division a lot, and then they take it down and rebuild. Now, again, the Oakland A's have a bad team this year because they got rid of every single person that was on their roster, basically, and they will finish that job at the trade deadline when they trade Frankie Montas. That's a team we should be looking at as what the Royals should do. I know everybody keeps saying Dayton Moore's a great GM and he does a good job and he's now the president of baseball operations. If he was doing such a great job, he needs to stop this, we're winning with our guys. And he needs to use his players that he has that other teams want. People want Benintendi. People want Salvador Perez. These are guys that can change playoff contending guys, and they'll give up the farm for this. If you want to actually rebuild your team, it is time for you guys to actually move on from some of these people that you think that you really shouldn't move on just because they were a part of the team that won the World Series in 2015. Obviously, you don't care about that anymore because you're not winning games. The only thing you care about is the money that you're putting in your pocket. If you keep wanting to win games or win with your guys, you need to actually move on from them and get yourself some new rebuilding talent. And that's all I have to say about the Royals and what they need to do. They need to flush the system. And if they're not willing to do that, and they don't do that this offseason before the trade deadline here in the next month, People in Kansas City should be rioting at the stadium. They should call for Dayton Moore's head. They should definitely call for new management. Flush out the entire front office. When I say flush that out, I'm not talking about firing every single person. I'm saying get a new GM, a new president of baseball operations, shift some things around, because ever since 2015, all the front office people are in the exact same positions. Nobody has moved. Nobody has shifted. Nobody's went from scout to player development or player development to this other situation in accounting and other stuff like that. All the baseball people, every single one of them are in the exact same position they've been in for the last 10 years. And you wonder why in the last 10 years, they've had 3 good seasons. 3. And you wonder why people aren't going to the games. And so what I would say to people in Kansas City, do not vote for a downtown ballpark unless they start making significant strides. And the first thing they need to do is get rid of their big ticket guys. Merrifield, Perez, Benintendi, sell Greinke. The season's over. You're not going to win this year. Greinke's a rental anyway for you. Get rid of him. Him and Benintendi. Get them both. And then you get hauls from Merrifield and Perez. You got people come up. Melendez is a catcher. Nick Prado can play second base, apparently. Put him at second instead of Merrifield. Do something, because if you don't, you're going to have big-time issues keeping the team in Kansas City. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Royals end up being the Las Vegas Royals. And, that's just the way it's going to end up being. And to be honest with you, Kansas City deserves it if they're not willing to step up and say something. So I appreciate everything. Again, like, subscribe, share this with your friends, do everything you got to do, and we will see you on the next